Hi, in this tutorial I will show you how to change eye color in Lightroom in a way that looks very natural. The first thing we need to do is create a mask or selection of the area to modify. The most logical tool for that is the adjustment brush, which you can access with the letter K. Paint over the iris, and if needed, just use the eraser to subtract from the mask. This mask is not really well done, but in any case, it's not easy to paint very precisely. For me, the most difficult part is when you don't get the perfect selection with the first strokes. So you have to refine the edge, and then it's really difficult to keep a nice curve and the same softness everywhere. So in this case, I will just delete the mask, and instead I will use the radial filter, which I think is the best tool to make this particular mask. I just click in the middle of the eye and drag to make the filter the size I need. If you see the mask overlay outside of the circle, you have to check the invert option, and if you don't see an overlay at all, you can press the letter O. You can move and modify the filter if needed, so this is one advantage of using a radial filter instead of the brush. You can change, for instance, the feather or softness of the edge, and that gives you a perfectly round edge with the same feather all around, which is not the case necessarily with the brush. So the next step is to refine the mask, and for that we'll use the radial filter brush. So be careful, it's not the main adjustment brush, it's just a brush that is within the options of the radial filter. It has exactly the same options as the adjustment brush, so eraser, size, feather, and so on. I'll start by erasing the mask over the eyelid, and I do that usually in small strokes, so if I make a mistake I just undo the last step and I don't have to start all over again. So I do it really little by little. I change the softness and size of the brush if it's needed, and for that I use shortcuts as much as possible. I will put some of them in the description below. Now that the eyelid is not part of the mask anymore, I will just remove the pupil as well. And if you don't get it right the first time, don't worry, just take your time, undo if necessary, redo it. And when you're happy with it, just click on the edit button to exit the brush tool. Now let's say that I want to modify the radial filter. I can change its position, size, rotation, and the eraser strokes that I made are not affected at all. It gives you more flexibility to make adjustments to the filter. Now the selection is made, so the hard work is done, and we are going to change the color. A few months ago, the hue option was added to the filters and adjustment brush. You can change the color of the masked area just by moving the slider left or right. I think it works really well with flat colors, but in this case I'm not really satisfied with the results. So I don't use this method, I will just double click on hue to reset its value. And instead I will set the saturation to 0, which removes all color information from the iris. Now I open the color window, and to have a less saturated color, just pick one color towards the middle because the saturation decreases from top to bottom. For a picture in which the eyes are quite small, I would just select this color and call it a day. But in the close-up where we have a lot of details, we can get better results with a little more work. I'll pick the very saturated green, and I know it doesn't look good at this point, but we'll get it better. One thing I didn't do is remove this highlight reflection from the eye, so now it's been tainted green as the rest of the eye, and we have to remove that using the range mask. In the drop-down list, I will select the luminance option, and it allows us to modify exactly where the mask is applied between the pure black, which is value 0, and pure white, which is the value 100. It's easier to see exactly where it's applied by displaying the range mask itself on the black and white image. For a more natural look, the best is to apply the color only to the midtones. Avoid the very dark areas, and obviously the highlights, including this reflection. So to do so, I move both sliders towards the center, and the left one just a tiny little bit to avoid applying it to the darkest colors. And while doing it, I just keep an eye on the mask to see exactly how it is affected by the changes in the sliders. As you can see, the change is very subtle, but it does look better, and the highlight is not green anymore. Let me turn the range mask off and on again so you can see exactly what it did. If you're not completely happy with the color, just play around with the sliders until you find something you like. This one, the smoothness slider, controls just how smooth the mask goes from areas within range and outside of the range. So it makes a hard edge or a soft one depending on the value. Now I will just change the saturation of the color a little bit. I want also to make the details of the iris a bit more crisp, so I will increase the clarity and texture of that area. It looks quite nice, but the whole eye is just green. And usually eyes are not only one specific color. So I think it can be improved a little bit by adding some color variation as a final touch. One way is to reintroduce some of the original color by moving the saturation slider just a little bit, and sometimes it looks good. Another way is to add an adjustment brush with a different color. And since often the inside of the iris is colored a bit differently, that's the area on which I will create a mask. It doesn't have to be extremely precise. Pick the color, add a range mask, and then you refine as needed. Once again, the effect is very subtle, but I think it gives this extra detail that makes it look really natural. Also keep in mind that if it looks too obvious that the color has been changed, it means it's not well done. So we're done now finally, and if you plan to create different versions of the image with different eye color, it's a good idea to just create a snapshot for each one so you can easily switch between colors. Thank you very much for watching this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Also, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to click on the bell icon to receive notifications when I post the next one.